Jim Carlini, thanks for joining us again on the Illinois Channel. And we wanted to get together with you because as we are sitting here in February of 2021, hopefully we're going to be coming out of the pandemic shutdown in the weeks or months ahead. But I'm wondering to what extent that we have had this workforce sitting at home, working from home, to what extent are we going to have lasting impacts and never really go back to normal? And for the sake of the audience, I wanted to say that Mr. Carlini is a consultant to businesses and communities on this very issue of economic development. And so, Jim, thanks for joining us. What would you say as we are in this process of trying to reopen the economy will be the lasting impact of COVID on the way we live and work?
Well, I think all the politicians and all the people running different areas of city government and state government have to realize we're not going back to business as usual ever, because too many companies were in a panic when this first happened. They had to get a lot of people out to their prospective houses and work from home. And all the companies were in a panic and they said, how are we going to do this? How are we going to remain productive? And so they ran around and got some new technology and technology that was available but never used as much as it was last year. And I'm talking about the video conferencing applications like Zoom and some of the other video connections that they have available. And companies started running large meetings, large conferences, all through these Zoom calls. And from this panic, they saw that they actually became more productive. People working out of their houses were actually getting 20 to 26% more productivity on a daily basis than they were when they were actually coming into work. And companies have seen this, and now companies are starting to capitalize on this. And some companies have actually sent surveys out to people. Do you want to come back to work? Do you want to work out of your house? Do you want to do a hybrid approach of maybe half working from your house and then the other 2 days working at the office? Well, a lot of people have responded, and they want to work from home on a permanent basis. And I can tell a couple of companies, especially like in the banks, where I'm familiar with what's going on just from my wife working at a bank. A lot of people are working out of their house permanently, and the companies have made the decision to stay with that process, stay with that application. So that means that all those people that used to commute, that used to go downtown or to a suburban office park, they're no longer going to be part of that commuter-based workforce. They're going to work from home, and that's going to cut back a lot of sales tax revenues and other types of revenues that cities and states sort of took for granted. They're actually going to find that it's not going to come back up to the levels that it was pre-pandemic. In other words, these different work from home jobs are going to stay work from home. And I think that has to be a wake up call to everybody out there throughout the whole country.
So on one hand, Jim, it's going to be a good thing and a bad thing, like so many things in life, right? On one hand, as we tape this, I'll say for the audience, we're doing this at about 6 in the evening. And you're at your home. I'm actually working from my home office. The fact that we can do this makes me far more productive, that I can arrange to do this instead of sitting downtown and then have a half an hour or more drive to go from downtown to my home, right?
Well, especially today, we talked about the snow. Just think if you had to come up here or I had to go down there through 2 hours of snow. I mean, this is totally productive because now the weather doesn't affect someone having a meeting, whether it's 6 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning.
And I would say that's maybe one of the surprising things. You tell me if I'm wrong, that we're finding people are more productive. And it's, I've thought about this so many times because I used to have my office where I was working downtown. And sometimes, in my instance, and I think this is probably true with a lot of people, you're working on a computer, but you might need to do something that is just going to take 5-10 minutes. The fact that you have to previously drive a half an hour to your office and do something for 5 or 10 minutes and drive a half an hour back, that's where it wears down on your morale as an individual, to be away from your family, getting in the car, the hassle of going there, to do just sometimes just a little bit of work to send some report out to somebody. And now that we can do all of this because of broadband at home is a godsend. The other thing is, we just passed not too long ago, the state of Illinois, a $45 billion capital works bill, and part of that is to go to repairing the highways, which on one hand we need. We still got truckers out there. We still need them to be bringing food to our grocery stores and retail stores and all the things that we need that are brought by truckers. So we want the roads repaired. But to the extent that we had all that congestion on the roads, I'm just thinking to the extent that we take people out of their cars and off the roads, that's almost worth having a whole brand new lane on the highway as far as taking, how many cars off the road daily just on the commute.
Well, there's all these different areas that we have to take a look at. And, we're taking cars off, but we're also taking revenue off. Because from an Illinois standpoint, a lot of revenue gets taken by daily commuters when you take the tollway in from, let's say, a location that's an hour outside of Chicago, and you're driving revenue. But if those people don't drive on that tollway anymore, that's a lot of revenues lost. And that's the focus that I'm looking at, is how much revenue is going to be lost from the typical downtown commute, or even to a suburban office park commute, where now you don't have people driving out for lunch or going out to lunch and spending money at lunch. If they're downtown, they're not going shopping, they're not taking a taxi, they're not taking Uber. All of a sudden, all these revenues that so many people take for granted, not only from the companies like Uber and the taxis and the restaurants, but also from the municipal governments, all the sales tax revenues, that's going to be a huge shortfall. And even though it's a godsend where you have less congestion on the highways, it's also going to be something where two words that have not come into mind in a lot of politicians' process is cut spending. They're going to have to start cutting back some of the different services that they take for granted. And we're just not going to have the revenue coming in as we used to. If you've got anywhere from 20 to 50% of that commuter workforce now staying at home, all those different areas that I mentioned are going to get shortfalls. You're not going to have people going out to restaurants. You're not going to have people going out to a lot of shopping or whatever if they're downtown. And as far as travel, same thing with travel. Airlines, hotels, hospitality, sure, they'll pick up when the pandemic is over. But a lot of companies that have seen that this is more productive to work from home, they're not going to have people flying out as much. In fact, some companies have already cut their travel budget immensely, and all those costs go right down to the bottom line. And that's going to make companies more profitable, but it's also going to make other companies that depend on the commuter coming in and spending money, those companies are going to have to look for alternative revenue streams.
It's interesting because just today, as we tape this on February 4, James Bullard, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, was commenting on the recovery. And he was saying that we're going to have a strong second half of this year. And one of the things, about 60% of the American economy relies on consumerism. You mentioned bars, restaurants, clothing, gasoline, all the different things we buy. And what the Fed chairman, or the Fed president of St. Louis board was saying, that we have people have a lot of money saved up, and precisely because they haven't been going out and spending it on going to the theater, going to the movies, going to restaurants, going to bars, they've been sitting at home. And because they have this money, they're going to have a lot more money to burn. Kind of an interesting thing. The other aspect of this that I wanted to bring up is that we have people, we talk about Illinois losing citizens. We've been losing citizens every year for about a decade, and every year it goes up. The critics of the state of Illinois government are blaming the high property taxes, the income taxes, all that we have. And they don't have in other states like Texas, Tennessee, and Florida, especially where people are moving. That's an aspect. Let me bring up for the viewers here something that you provided to us, a huge wake-up call to all municipalities. And for those that are at home, hopefully they can read this, but it says, glad we moved from New York and work here in Florida. Some of the others moved to rural areas and work from home. No more 2-hour commutes, and the taxes saved. How prevalent is this as that theme? That the fact is, if you're doing any number of things, like being a stockbroker or a salesman over the phone, or any number of things, you can move to any state and work from there. Is that a wake-up call, you say, for not only municipalities, but maybe for state government as well?
Definitely. This is a paradigm shift. This is something where people now have a huge option where they don't have to be close to work. The big thing was like, oh, I've got to be close to work. I've got to be somewhere where I can get there within an hour or a half hour. Something that you don't have the need. You don't have the need to be in the area, and you can commute from anywhere. And this is going to really change a lot of people's idea of where they want to live. Maybe they don't want to live where there's snow. Maybe they want to live in a warmer climate. And this is going to shift the workforce even more.
To what extent should those who are like the Governor Pritzker of Illinois, to what extent do you think that they have to be paying attention to this? How would you prioritize? If you had their ear of the city of Chicago, the mayor of Lightfoot, or the governor, if you're going to bring in certain jobs, I used to be in manufacturing. Well, my workforce had to come to me. I had all the equipment there. And if you're making widgets, in my case, I was in the printing business back in the 1980s, but like we said, more and more people are in the service industry. Now, if you're working in hospitality, which is taking a huge hit, you're going to have to go to the hotel and work there. You're going to have to go to the restaurant and work there. So we're still going to have people commuting that can't work over the internet. Do we know what percent of the workforce, is it possible that they can work from home as I am doing? And to what extent do you have, as I mentioned, these people working in manufacturing, restaurants, and maybe in hospitals, where they have to go to a specific location?
Sure. Not every job is going to be transferable to a work from home basis, but from all the office workers, from all the white collar jobs, there is a good percentage of people, the people that work in a back office, situation where you have a large bank, you have a large manufacturing company, the person that's working on the assembly line, they've got to come into work. But the person that's a design engineer, the person that's working in accounting, the person that's working in customer service, all of those jobs do not have to be on location. A lot of them can be work from home. And so this is going to impact a lot of places. I was just talking to one company where they're looking at dropping from 4 floors of office space down to 1 floor of office space. Just think about that and spread that across 50 or 100 downtown buildings. If you've got a company looking at reducing their corporate leasing by 75%, that's going to make a huge impact on the real estate. And again, all the ancillary companies and workers that provide services to all those people that come into that office space, if you're reducing that by 75%, that's going to be an impact on everybody around. And it's happening on a long-term basis, because in fact, in one company, they've offered to all their people that are working at home. They said, come up and pick up your office chair and come up and pick up your data monitor, your computer monitor, and you can take it home for free. These companies would not be giving out that type of equipment for free unless they figured it's a lot cheaper to have the worker come in and take it home and use it than having a third party come in and move it towards storage. So to me, that's a long-term decision. If they're getting rid of all their office chairs, and this is something where there were so many people that wanted to take an office chair, they ran out of office chairs. This is over 200 people in one location. So what they had to do, they had to split up. Instead of getting an office chair and a computer monitor, you got your choice of either a desk or an office chair or a monitor. So it's something where this is actually theory. This isn't some hypothetical concept. This is actually happening right now.
Right, it's happening right now. Before we close out, I put up the cover of your book, Location, Connectivity, and you had made the point in previous interviews and in your book, just say you have to have smart cities, you have to have smart industrial parks, you have to have those connections, because increasingly no one can do work if they're not interconnected. We can tell from just the little interview that we did here, I'm sure this is almost like where one could spend a day-long seminar. We're scratching the surface. I know some places are going to be losers, and we talk about the hospitality industry. Chicago by itself, I know, used to have 50 million people come into the city every year from out of town. Some of them were tourists, but a lot of them were for these big shows. And another loser is Las Vegas. We used to have the electronics show would bring in maybe 100,000 people into that town. The broadcasters convention I used to go to on a regular basis was like 70 or 80,000 people coming in. Chicago has similar kind of trade shows. Now we have technology where that technology is allowing people to show their wares without traveling to Chicago. If you're a business person, going to the convention center, putting up your booth, and the average business there that puts up a booth hoping to get some business out of it, they've got to spend at $5,000 would be cheap, more like $10,000 to $100,000 to have those, to participate in those kind of conferences. I just wonder to what extent we're going to have a real problem as far as the city of Chicago losing millions and millions and millions of tax dollars that from all those dollars that are not going to be coming into the city of places like Chicago, places like Las Vegas.
It's already started. They've already lost several large conferences, and I look at it as it's going to be more competitive when it comes to if a convention comes back, a conference comes back from being a virtual conference. They're going to be in cities. Cities are going to go after that type of revenue stream. So it's not, again, Chicago, New York, Dallas, San Francisco, all the major convention centers are going to have to take a look at. It's very competitive to get a conference now, and it can't be taken for granted that, since they came here the last 10 years, they're going to come here again. If Las Vegas offers a better deal or some other city offers a better deal, you better believe that these conferences are going to go. And we in the past in the Chicago area used to take for granted that, all this will be handled because we're going to have so many people coming in. And this is going to be a huge wake-up call, because I don't think Chicago and a lot of other cities are prepared for this type of paradigm shift. And you can see today some of the conferences that have turned virtual, they've already lost revenue. One conference they used to have was the IML conference, the Illinois Municipal League, and that used to be at the Conrad Hilton downtown. Well, they canceled that this last year, and now they're looking at opening it up for this year. Will they come back to Chicago? Probably. But there's other conferences that hey, we had a successful run as a virtual conference. We're going to do it again this year as a virtual conference. And that's going to cut back a lot of revenues that, as I said, a lot of municipalities take for granted.
I had covered the Illinois Municipal League Conference for a number of years, and I can say that, yeah, the Conrad Hilton there in Michigan it was entirely filled up. I mean, people can just imagine how much money was being spent by all the mayors and aldermen and all attending that conference. In fact, they had the Essex next door that was spillover. That's just one example out of many, that of all those dollars that were being spent in a myriad of ways, drinks, food.
And the surrounding restaurants too, not just the hotels, but the surrounding restaurants, the sports
and all those
activities.
people getting, the waiters, the waitresses, the bartenders who were living on those tips, that they would enjoy, and that's gone. So I mean, everyone's going to have to figure this out, and obviously we'll adapt. But I would say that for those in government and for those looking at budgets and all, they're going to have to realize, as you said, and I think we've driven home the point, when we have these vaccines, and thank goodness for that, and when we go back to work, and when we open up the economy around the world, and hopefully we can go on vacation again back to Europe and other places, it's not going to be exactly the same. It'll never be exactly the same as it was, kind of like the way the car came out and changed the world forever. And we lost a lot of jobs in the horse and buggy business back in those days. This is a similar paradigm shift as you have mentioned, and we appreciate you joining us to kind of fill us in. Hopefully we can follow up again with you at some point.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and as always, it's very interesting to talk about these things.
It always is. Thank you so much, Jim. Take care now.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.